Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Arevalo, and today what I wanted to do was actually reach out to you guys on a human level. As many of you know, I just wrapped up a really wonderful experience on a spiritual mission that the Divine asked me to do, where I got to engage as a homeless person in the city of Los Angeles during a huge pandemic, and I shared what I have discovered along those lines. But what this is about is actually connecting to you on a much deeper level. And what I'm about to say is going to be a little bit jarring and shocking, but I just ask that you guys do me an honor or do me a favor and actually listen all the way through, and so that you understand where I'm coming from when I say these things, because it's something that I think that we as a collective need to kind of consider. And it has to do with a heavy topic called the enslavement of the human race. And what I mean by that, just to begin, is that for many of us in spiritual circles, we have watched the world become a little bit more impoverished on the spiritual level, right? Because of X, Y, and Z, so many things are now falling, and like the fray is starting to show on, structured religion and stuff like that, where there's hypocrisy and things like that. And so we're not going to get into all of that per se. But what I wanted to do is lay the foundation for what is to come now. So part of my mission in life is to help address things that the Divine sees may be a little bit more of the controversial, but still in a way that's very graceful. So let me do my best here and just say that I'm going to do whatever I can to be graceful in how I share this. But it is heavy, and it will trigger some of you. And I'm only saying it out of a place of love, because humanity needs to wake up before it's too late. So let's begin with the beginning. So back in the day, I'm not going to say his name because I never speak evil's name, but let's just say he wrote a set of letters that had to do with slavery. And one of the things that he had mentioned very clearly was how to break stags. We're going to go with what was said. And what I wanted to say about that is, when you read those horrific letters, you understand that he was equating humanity. I'm not going to say color, because at this point it's everybody, but it was specifically to African Americans, and how you break the stag, which is the male lead of the tribe, and you torture them and brutalize them in front of the clan so as to make them break, and so that the clan falls in line and the women become more docile, and the young boys are hurt a couple times around, just to make sure that they never go outside of the box. And so the reason I'm even bringing this up is because I've been watching as some things have been going on with humanity, and the Divine and I are at a point where it's so heavy on me that if I don't share this with you all, I will always feel like I can't move on from what I've learned. And it's a wisdom that I think is sacred. So what I've noticed is that instead of them breaking us as human beings, what they've done is specifically targeted minorities in our country and around the world. And what they do is that they make examples of us by triggering the male stags, usually firstborn males or willful women. And they trigger you either through rape or incest or whatnot. And what they want is to mess you up, so that you never are able to actually be a Martin Luther King, or to be a Martin Luther, or to be a Jesus Christ. They always want us to be docile creatures, like that we never stand out and we never say anything that isn't in alignment with their perversion of what corruption looks like. And what I mean by that is, have you ever noticed that when it comes to our race, there used to be the 5 levels of hierarchy? It used to be the homeless and the destitute, then it was the poor, then it was the middle class, then it was the moderately wealthy, and then it was the elite. Now, the interesting part about the elite is the elite has 2 sections. It has the actual elite, and then the coward elite, which hides behind them. They're the shadow of the elite. And what they do is that they use the front end of the elite, the ones that are like celebrities and stuff like that, and they manipulate them, but to some degree. Not all celebrities, by the way, but I'm talking about is like that elite, and they use them as faces. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you commit a crime and they buy you out. I'm not going to say a name of a person, but he's been in office lately. When he did something that he couldn't get out of, he got a couple bailouts, right? And so coincidentally, he's now like been used and manipulated into a puppet on strings in order to act out a part that he is indebted to them for. And so he can't do anything about it. He has to pay back what he has the bailouts. You see what I'm saying? So the exchange there was that they used him as the patsy, and so the whole world is now just testing this person, and he had no choice because he had made a deal with the devil, essentially. So we're speaking of that level, right? And so I'm not saying anything disparaging about him because I still think it's a pawn, but not him as a person, but the situation. But what I'm saying to you is that that's the elite. There's two branches to it, right? The shadow and then the actual forefront. And the forefront are just spokesmen or people who have needed a little help along the way for mistakes that they couldn't get out of themselves, and so they made a deal with the devil, and so they are like the front part of it. And so now when we look at society, we don't find that anymore, do we? The middle class has been removed, and now it's the elite wealthy, and it's usually what I call the people who are in league with the dark side, and then the poor, and then the destitute. Like the other two have been pretty much removed, right? And the reason I say all of this is because I've been watching what happens with humanity, and specifically the way that predators target children. And what I've noticed very early on as a victim of molestation was that they prefer firstborn males and firstborn females. And the way that I understood it from my deep conversations in meditation with my higher self was that it's willful women, girls who show willful character, and males who have already been abused. And what they're looking for specifically in minorities is that combination. Because what they do is that they know that both, if they are raped, will become hurt and they'll become damaged. What did I say? With a damaged emo girl, there's a song that has that horrible lyric in it. Anyway, but it's that type of mentality. And so what they've done is, instead of beating us, and instead of enslaving us in a way that is like brutal, what they do is that they trick us into lashing out and not seeking help. And so they are engaging the more negative aspects of each of our cultures in order to make examples of us to the rest. And what happens is that they then trigger you into thinking that your life is better off not living the straight line, but doing crime as a way to get around it. Meanwhile, they're manipulating you because they know that they will always catch you. And so they take the stags, all of the male leads in African American culture and Hispanic culture primarily, the ones that are the strongest physically. Like, you can't argue that an African American or a black person isn't bigger and stronger. They're the strongest. They're the warriors of our clans. They're the warriors of our race. And then Hispanics are the warriors of the farms in the fields. And you can't argue that. And so because they are weak, they're seeking to break them. And so they trigger you into believing that it's better to be a drug dealer instead of working hard. They trick you into using the N-word because they think that they make you think that you're taking your power back, but what you're not realizing is that it's manipulation so that it gives white people the opportunity to say it in songs. Always trapping you in this cycle of enslavement. And so what they do is that then they bust you and they send you to jail so that you're removed from your families. And then they do exactly what the Lynch letter said. Oops, I said his name, but we're going to go with it. Which was that they then breed with your women in order to bring the race into purified state. Yeah, I've been watching it my whole life. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm just crazy. There's no way this is happening. But it is. And so what they do is that they take, for example, the African American culture, from New Orleans. So y'all know I love black people in general, and I can say that. But what I've noticed is that they have separated you specifically from your feminine, from your females. And what they do is that they engage you into believing that you are better off as a thug. Your bravado is what they're feeding because they know that you will take the quick buck. This is their thinking, not mine, by the way. But they will make you believe that if you take the quick way, that you can make more money, never realizing that they are always getting the goods on you. You're never free as long as you're in that world. And so what you do is that without knowing it, you think that you have street cred. But that doesn't mean anything to you if you're dead. And it doesn't mean anything to your children that you're not taken care of. And so what they've done is they've given you, on top of tricking you, they've actually tricked you into not taking care of your own children. And what that does is that to society, you become exactly what they want you to look like. That's how brutal this enslavement is of our race. And so it was so hard on me to watch because I didn't, how do you say stuff like this to people? And so it wasn't until I was actually in the homeless and I was among my own peer group people that are like suffering, I started to realize to what degree this goes. And so what they then do is that they take the feminine side of the same culture and they make it into like blonde hair and like telling you that you're not pretty enough and that you need to do this type of extensions and this, and you can't be yourself, and oh, you can't trust them. They just leave their bastard children. Like, that's what they say. That's the implications that they spread throughout our world. And what we don't realize is that we're playing as pawns into their hands. And the entire time, they're basically taking only things that won't be, things that are detrimental to our own culture. Same thing with like a Hispanic population. Now, we all know that, you know, like specifically in our culture right now, the Mexican population are under attack. Why? Because they're the hardest workers as far as field work and things that threaten their way of life. And culturally speaking, Hispanic population is going to be where it's at because they're deleting the African American experience in black people altogether. That's their MO, is to delete that. And by doing that, they're sending everybody to prison, or they're trapping you in drug addiction, or they're doing X, Y, and Z to remove that race. And so their only race left is the Hispanic race. Now, here's the thing. They're making sure that you become Americanized if you're in America, or that you become gentrified and that you start to blend in together. Because remember, their goal is to purify the race, not understanding that the only deity that can do that is God or Allah or whoever you pray to. But it's so enslaved and so horrible to even think about that. We don't want to even think about this. No, that's not happening, but it is. And here's a perfect example. The N-word should never be used by anyone, because what it's used for is to promote your own spell against yourself. You're casting spells against your own culture when you say that word. You think that you're empowering yourself, but you're just, you think about it this way. Your grandparents and your great-grandparents were butchered mainly because of, and they were, that word was used to demean them and to make them nothing. And here you are trying to use it to, you can't empower that word because you're carrying that memory forward. So imagine what it must be like to your grandparents and great-grandparents who were butchered and beaten and just tormented, and you're using that word. There's no power to you in that. You are taking away, you are casting a spell towards your own culture. And in doing so, even worse, you're allowing them to use that word against you and do it to your face. They're doing it to you in song. Like when you put a song together and use that word, you are literally doing magic. You are casting a negative spell on the whole culture. And they've tricked you to believing that you have empowerment there, but you don't. Because what you're doing is you're allowing every white person, every Hispanic person, every Asian to cast the same spell against you. That's how dark this goes. And so I would recommend immediately stop using that freaking word and never use the word renege. If you don't know what that word comes from, look it up and banish it from your vernacular. Like, it's just not it. Because what we're doing is, when Maya Angelou said it best, she said, words have power. They are their own energy. And so if you don't understand what I'm saying to you and you get triggered, think of what she's saying to you, right? Words are their own instrument. And when you use words that have so much violence attached to it, you're just empowering the other side of it to use the word. You can't win that argument. And then what they do, which is really horrific, is that they target specifically minority men to rape and molest as children, because that's the easiest way to break a stag, is to derail their future. And it's a whole religious thing, to be honest with you. From what I've researched and from what I can understand, it's because the Christ and the Antichrist and all of that would be firstborn males. It's one of the reasons that, like in America, you can't, if you go to war, the firstborn male is not allowed to be drafted. That's the only one that cannot be drafted, because of the fact that from that population, and the same for female, because God could come male or female, you know. It's only in religion that we have this thing where women are subjugated, which we'll get into later. That's another enslavement factor. But what I'm saying to you now is that they target us because they know that if they can derail us, we have a higher chance of becoming criminalized, to breaking the law and retaliating, to homophobia, which of course just breaks you even further, because God doesn't believe in hatred. So you see what I'm saying? So each thing stacks against you and you're being manipulated, is the way it works. And then one of the things that they do best is that they want to make you medicated. And so there are two ways that they do this when you are enslaved. Excuse me. Is they use illegal drugs to control you. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have nothing against drug use. I mean, you guys know that I used to be an addict and I've stopped doing it. But when I did it, I noticed something, that most of the drugs are sedatives. And what they're doing, especially with pot, which a lot of people use pot recreationally, and I have nothing against drugs, don't get me wrong, but when you use it all the time, you become sedentary, and so you don't do things, and so you become lethargic. You don't go after your goals. You don't get off your couch. You just sit around and drink and party. But guess what? You can't live a life that way. And so what happens is you kill your brain cells, which we all know. Which is why I get triggered when people say, or I used to, when people used to say, oh, well, let's banish smoking. No, because smoking has cyanide. Okay, so then roll your own cigarettes. Done. But the cash crop is now pot. Because, see, pot kills your brain cells with every single joint that you smoke. You're just making yourself dumber and dumber and dumber. That's why it's called dope, or originally. But when you smoke cigarettes, it's a long gestation. Not everybody gets cancer that smokes cigarettes, but everybody who smokes pot gets dumber and dumber and dumber because you're becoming you're lethargic, and so you stop wanting to go for your dreams. All you do is dream, but you don't put any action to it. In fact, that's why we have an overweight population, and it's all enslavement. And so though I know that everybody wants to party and have a good time, I'm looking at this from the divine standpoint, you all know that the divine doesn't, everything in moderation, that's how the divine looks at life. I mean, it wouldn't be here if it didn't serve a purpose. But when you throw your life away, you think that you are doing something that makes you giggle and watch TV, but do you do anything else? Are you accomplishing anything in your life? Are you reaching your goals? No. And to make matters worse, what they then do is that they, especially with Hispanic males and black men, is that they cast you against your own feminine. Because their aim is to do what the Lynch letter said, which is to gentrify and to deplete the race down to as white as it can go, which of course just backfires on them because that's part of life. That's where we're all heading, is all the races are going to merge anyway. So they're losing either way, but that's not the point. They're demeaning you and throwing you in jail and getting you to react negatively and angrily, rightfully so. But you got to understand that if you play their game, they always will win. Right? That's my point. And so that's the enslavement aspect of it, because they think that we all think that we're fighting for free, but what we don't realize is the moment that we react to them with anger, they've got us. They can throw us in jail. We're out. And you leave your children and your wife for them to fuck with. Literally. And that's what the Lynch letters talks about. And so then you take the most willful female of the tribe and you break her. And you do it through manipulation. And so even though they can't beat us anymore, I just wanted you guys to see what I'm seeing from the world standpoint. And so as we look even darker into it, where does this all come from? Because now we're dealing with women as a general culture. You are equal to men in the eyes of God. Yet we've been indoctrinated to believe that women are somehow subservient to the male. That is a small dick thing. That's not real. That's not the truth. The truth is that women are always equal to men. And if you don't believe it, then look at your mom. There's not a single man out there who will talk down about their mom. But yet somehow we have gotten into this belief system that women are okay. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from organized religion, technically. And I'm not saying it's their fault, because, the Word of God is the Word of God. I am all people. I'm never going to speak ill of Christ, because I know Christ is my boss. But understand what I'm saying to you. Christ would never say that women are from Adam's rib. Bullshit. That would never happen. And I know that's going to trigger a lot of people. But, the Bible is still telling us prophet, and they're still telling us the truth. But some things are not real. Why would God make you secondary citizens? He wouldn't. But we've been indoctrinated to believe it. So what they do is that they take things like that and they manipulate it. And here's what I mean. How do you how do you make a house fall? You divide it. So within the feminine population, you guys are fighting over Roe v. Wade. And I get it. Some people are pro-choice, some people are pro-life. But what you're actually arguing is the right to think for yourself. In the simplest terms. They have you fighting with each other because they know that if you guys got together, who's the most powerful? Lion or the lioness in the tribe? The lioness, because the lioness can control the lion, and the lioness controls the babies, and the lioness is the center point. But how do you break a stag? You make it so that the tribe is not cohesive, and you start breaking it down. And so they've taken the feminines, and they've put you against each other in this stupid argument, which you're both, there's not, even if you are pro-life, you cannot say that you are not understanding at the moment that I'm saying this to you, that what you're saying when you argue people who are pro-choice is that you don't even have the right to think about it. It doesn't matter if you do it. It's the thought. Do you have the right to consider what's best for your body? And we're seeing this play out in COVID, which is a gleaming example of enslavement, right? But we'll get to that in a minute. So then what they do is that they've taken the feminine qualities, the dominant females, the willful ones who find a way to step up into power, and this is how enslavement works, and they vilify you by making you making you believe that you must compete in a man's world by taking on the most negative traits of the male species. And so what you start to do is you start to get a bravado when you're feminine, so you take away all of your power and you look comical to a man. See, and it's not even like normal. I'm talking about to them. Don't get it twisted. I don't look at this, but I'm watching this happen culturally. And so it's really hard then, because what you don't realize is that when you start talking shit about men, your son is right there watching you and hears you. So you can never reach your true state of power, empowerment, because you have never had a level footing. The longer that you play this game with them, the longer you can't win. Because your own sons and your gay friends, who are your biggest ally, can't support you when you are talking shit about them. You know what I mean? Like you can't do that. You're fighting fire with fire, and what happens? Everyone gets burned, and the planet is on fire. Like we're all going to go if we don't snap out of it. But what I'm trying to do is empower the feminine to remember that you are divine. You bring life into the world, but when you start fighting for superiority, saying that gives you the gift to be bigger and better than men, you've lost everything. You will never have equality in this world, because you cannot say that you are fighting for equality when you are fighting for superiority. You see what I'm saying? And so that's part of the enslavement. They're trying to make everybody fight constantly. And one of the biggest crimes, I think, in the world is what they've done with the police departments and with minorities. They've pitted you against each other so that you continuously take it out on one another. And what happens is that then when the minorities have had enough, they go at it with the cops, and these two energies that clash, that are brothers. These should be, remember, they serve to protect the people. But that's not how it works right now. They are beating the people down. And so here's where COVID, the enslavement part, came in very clearly to me, is when I was looking at the genesis of this whole BS thing of complete mind control. I noticed one thing specifically, which is I just said in the last post. One of the things I found interesting about this pandemic is that for a culture in America, I'm going to use America specifically because I live here, but we are known for anger. We are known to trigger quickly. And suddenly everyone's very docile and very, very, oh yes, okay, well thank you, and it's a mind control. And I realize that I don't want to say that we need to be violent or anything like that, because that's the opposite of what the divine would ask you to do, because that plays into their hand. But understand that all of the people who have been removed from society are our warriors. And so it feeds back to the enslavement of the lynch. They're breaking the stag. They put the stag out of commission to leave all of us to be manageable. Isn't that horrible? But that's the truth of what they've done. And you don't believe me? Here. What do you put on a horse? A muzzle. How's that muzzle feeling? You guys You happy? It's a muzzle. They're keeping us apart. It's a virus. What are you afraid of? A virus? Really? Because we have a cold. We get the cold all the time. It's probably even more deadly than this fucking thing is. But we're playing into it. Because now what they're doing is the people that used to get along, families, are now, they won't see each other. So they're disconnected. So what happens with the loneliness? They become drug addicted. So we're back to the dope thing. So either you do dope, or you do methamphetamine, or you do heroin if you've really been hurt, which coincidentally a lot of adult men who have been raped and women who have been raped, typically by their own family at that, become heroin addicts. And I wonder why. Okay? But who runs the cartels? Because the mob is the mob. The mob is the bomb. The mob's doing their own fucking thing. The mob is not controlled by anybody, from what I can understand. They're like a really well-run government. Like the government that we should have is over there. But the ones that work with the cartel are who? Are the same people who are operating all this. They're making bank off of us, right? And the point is that the more you keep your environment docile and you keep everybody under control, the more they become drug addicted, right? Because how do you deal with stress in an environment that keeps pressure cooking you? You take Valium, which does what? It sedates you. Or you smoke pot. And what do? Veg out, get fat, and you don't go anywhere. You can't even see your own dick. What woman is going to find you attractive? So they're making you lonelier and lonelier, and you're becoming more prone to addiction. And so the more that you take these medications, you take things to sleep, like trazodone, which knocks you out, you become more and more puppets. And I'm not, like I said, I have no problem. I take ibuprofen every now and then. Like, don't get me wrong. And I used to do drugs like crazy. But I'm saying to you what enslavement looks like so that we start waking up to the reality of what's going on. And then there is the overachiever. Now, here's the interesting part. The overachiever is prone to two things: Adderall and methamphetamine. Now, the problem with both of those is there's a psychosis point that happens that breaks that separation down. There are functioning addicts that you can never tell that take one or both. And then there are most of the population, which just snaps and goes into crazy land. Okay, so what have they done? They've now separated the drug classes. Oh, it gets dark, y'all. But what I wanted to share with you in that is, I'm not saying, but bear in mind that why are we giving children Ritalin? They have high energy. They're children. Go back. Someone do me a favor. Go back as a reporter or whatnot, because I have a big thing for a specific journalist right now. But go back and see, when did we start administering Ritalin, and how long was the gestation before the first school shooting was? And that's another hot topic. How do you divide your people? Well, we talk about the right to bear arms. I'm a right to bear arms guy. I'm telling you right now, I'm from the South. I will go hunt. It's not a big deal to me. You know, I'm the type that will say thank you before I kill anything, and thank you for, I'll have to eat the meat. But I don't understand why people, now, a semi-automatic weapon and something that can kill my children, where's the argument there? There is no argument. What they've done is they've made you believe that you are losing your right. Meanwhile, they're going after Roe v. Wade, taking away that right from women to even think for themselves. But what they're doing is they're making you sacrifice your own children. And here's what I don't understand sometimes is, we know this. We can see this in COVID, can't we? Because what we've done is we all are taking the vaccines. Well, I'm not, but most people are taking the vaccine, which is a poison, and they're putting it into their body. But they're not putting it into their children. So if something goes wrong, here's the catch. You leave your children behind to the child predators and the child traffickers. And that's what they're trying to get this wheel to do. They're purifying the race. Remember, that's the way that they phrase it. We're purifying things. And we have 7 billion people. So we have to do something. So we're choosing. That is how enslaved we are. And the entire time we think that they're our friends and they're helping us. Let me just ask you all a question. When it comes to stimulus checks, we can't even get them to help our children or things under normal circumstances. Why are they handing you free money right now? Is anything in this world free? No. They're keeping you quiet and they're keeping you docile so they can do this changeover stuff. What they don't understand is that the divine is watching this all play out and is recording every single... Like, these people, from what I understand, worship Satan. And in this case, let's call it materialism. Remember, the scriptures specifically spoke of the fact that when it came time for the second coming, that the world would have fallen into the hands of a fake leader who worshipped Satan. Well, here's the thing. Satan, I don't think, is actually a person. I think Satan is materialism. And so because of our greed and our need to make money, we're so puppets on strings that we can't break free of it, can we? Except one population, homeless population, which is under immense, incredible amounts of strain right now. And how do I know that? Well, let me give you an example of something that happened to me yesterday. I was walking down the street and I ran into one of the people that I was in Hollywood, and I was walking down the street and I ran into somebody that I used to live with at that transitional horrible place that I was telling you guys about in one of the last posts. And do you know what they have them doing? They have them quarantined between noon to 5 p.m. every day. And I said, why? And he goes, I have no idea. I'm like, does the virus take a break? Does it go to lunch? And he's like, I don't know. And so then I'm walking, I leave him and I say, oh, well, that's interesting, I'm going to share that. And so then as I'm walking into I think it was 7-Eleven, which, by the way, is a charity organization that gives money to charity. I'm just going to put that out there, because those of you who are in liberal states, specifically California, can I remind you that you are the 7th largest economy in the world. You can walk away from their big bag of bullshit and do your own thing, because they are going after you the hardest. I'm telling you right now. And I'm sure a lot of you just woke up to it. By the way, Mr. What's his name, the governor? There's a petition going around, sir. Where there's smoke, there is fire. I don't know much about it because I'm not supposed to get into politics, but I'm just going to say that with everything going on and the fact that we are starting to smell bullshit at a mile away, we're starting to look at you sideways. How involved are you in all this? I'm just putting that out there. Anyway, the moral story is that so I go to 7-Eleven and I get a Coke. They won't even let me get my own Coke anymore. In fact, most of the places are now telling us what we can drink and where we can pee, which is exactly what you do to a what? A dog. That's what you do to a caged dog. You break them. You train them in a cage, which is what we're all living in, isn't it? No? You don't believe me? So, everybody's walking around. They can't breathe. They can't speak. And nothing is heard. You have to say everything over and over again. They're keeping you to yourself. They're not allowing you to mix together. They're not allowing you to date. You're not allowed to go to movies. You're not allowed to go to Disneyland. You're not allowed to go anywhere that does what? Lets you be free. And so, when it came to the soda, I just started laughing because now we have people who are paid very, very little. They now have to stop, and they're very, very busy because there's no restaurants open that are like where you can just get a Coke. Like you have to get a meal now, right? And so what they're doing is they're making them stop what they're doing, go and get the Coke for you, and so the line forms, which creates what? Conflict, because at some point people start to get pissed off, and they're not letting you get your own Coke. And now here's my thing. Has any one of you ever seen a human being take their mouth and put it under the fucking nozzle of that thing and drink from the tap? Not once in the entire existence of human experience has that ever happened. At most, they've taken the cup, poured the ice into it, and then taken the cup and drank from this end. They never turn it sideways and then put it back to... And besides, if they did so, what is the rationale here? If they're going to cough, they're going to cough through this paper, and it's going to affect you anyway. It's not going to stop shit. I mean, really? You see what I'm saying? But they have us indoctrinated into believing that what they say is true. But the problem is that you can't unknow bullshit. Once you see the truth of stuff, you can't shake it. And so it's been, like, I've been carrying this by myself for such a long time. And I've been like, no one is ever, at the time, I was insecure with myself. And I was like, oh, no one's ever going to believe me. I'm just going to, And the divine was like, you're going to boot camp, dude, and you're going to be the strongest motherfucker out there because I'm sending you to boot camp, and you're going to do... And so when I was done with that last cycle, I realized that for me, this was it. Either I was going to say this and share this with you guys and hopefully wake us up to what they're doing in order to make you understand what the game plan is here. So... with that, it's just another level of being caged. It's so how to train a dog. They're telling you, you're potty training you basically. You can't go to any bathroom outside of your own, so they keep you regional, so they can control you. And so then on top of it, what they're doing is anybody who acts out suddenly comes down with the virus or gets sent to jail. And what has that have done? It's left all of the other people docile and controlled because everybody's taking drugs, everybody's popping pills, and nobody's getting work. And if you are getting work, you're going to places that suppress humanity. That's what their aim is. To send you to big corporations where you end up in factory workers or enslaved somehow. And the way that they're doing it is they're pitting you against each other. Because, seriously, you're firing American citizens over not wanting to put something that has only been tested for 4 months, a toxin, into their body. You're mandating that your life is more important than their life. And the divine is going, oh, really? You have not been paying attention, have you, to scripture, have you? And on top of it, it's a complete slap in the face of the divine because you're sitting there saying, I don't believe in you. That's what they want you to do. Because, see, they believe in the devil. And here's the best part, and here's the silver lining to all of this. You see, if you understand the truth of Scripture, then you understand that they're correct, that the energies are true. But what they didn't quantify is the fact that Christ paid for our sins as humanity, which everybody makes sense, right? And so then he went from son to father, and so he ascended. But when it came to his return, the second coming, he's coming as the anti-version of that. He's coming to pass judgment. He's not going to be all nice and googly eyes with you. So he is in and of himself the same person, just in flipped roles. Just like the four horsemen become the four archangels become the four horsemen. Because that they are serving God. It's Judgment Day. We don't get a second chance. But the world thinks that's indoctrination. They're making us believe that they're two different. There's not. Because the Satan is the materialism. So what's interesting about that is that they've then taken a notch further and they vilified gays. Now, I want you guys to understand what gay stands for. Gays, G-A-Y-S, stands for guardian angels and the yokesman and the service of man. They are companions to the divine, not sexually or anything weird like that, but they are his warriors. They are his think of Secret Service. They are his secret, and same with lesbians. That they are the same. Gals, G-A-L-S, is guardian angels, liberation in the service of man. Get it? And so they've taken something sacred in religion that is true, and they've corrupted it so that we are pitted against each other. And the two greatest ways to do that is they've taken the African American experience and they've actually pitted you against the gay population. And the only problem with that is that many people on this culture live in the down low. So you're already, see what I'm saying? So they're just manipulating. I mean, out of everybody, the African American experience and black people in general have had it the worst. Jews and black people have had it the absolute worst. And so it's time that we wake up and get with it, because Black Lives Matter, that's what they're trying to stop. That is what this is about. They are trying to ensure that African Americans do not have their rights, that are not seen equal, and the divine's going, they're not only going to have it equal, but they're going to win. And here's what I'm saying. This is so worldwide that I want you guys to think about where the cradle of life began. And I want you to look at that and tell me you can't see that they are purposely targeting wiping out that race. The cradle of life is where all life came from, and it's black, predominantly. And look what's happening. We can literally feed every single human on that with the blink of our hat. We could literally wipe out HIV, which we're going to get to in a second, at the drop of a hat. We can do anything we can to help them. Why aren't we? Because they're not the right shade. That's what they're saying, not what I'm saying, because I'm all about everybody. But you see what I'm saying? That's how enslaved we are. And they sit there and say, well, why aren't these people, blah, blah, blah. So but these are things that we can't ignore. Why are we still allowing child molesters in churches? God is furious over this topic. Because what they did is that someone let the devil in the house. And now they can't get rid of the devil because it's spread. Because they seem to think that by targeting women who are willful, that they are making... Remember how we used to well, we didn't, but remember the old world used to do the thing where they used to crucify men who were adulterous or beat them or burn them and stuff like that, but we don't allow that anymore. So what they've done now is that they target women in particular who are vulnerable and who are willful. That's how they phrase it, willful. And they make sure that your child gets raped. That's why they're targeting you, is to make you pay and to break your stags and your daughters. That's their intent. That's how evil this is. And it's just I can't wait to be done with this topic so we can go shower and just... Anywho, so with that, the introduction of the HIV strain was very interesting because it had a weird genesis, right? We didn't quite understand. It was like chicken blood and this stuff. It was concocted. It was made to wipe out the gay population, right? It didn't work because what ended up happening is that the cultures mixed together and there's a lot of bisexual people, and so it blended and it spread throughout. But where does it blending the worst? African American culture and Hispanic culture. That's how dark this goes. And it's predominantly you guys. And gays, let me ask you something. My own brothers here. I'm going to ask you, because the lesbians are smarter. They don't have this particular issue. They have so many other things, and I'm down with my girls. But for the moment, I'm focusing on the fellas. Why are you believing that there is a pill on the planet that will stop HIV from spreading to you when you can't even stop the infection when wearing a condom? Because I'm watching people get the virus, and I'm undetectable. You still have the fucking virus. You're being wiped out, and you're handing your rights over in doing so. You see what I'm saying? You should treat everyone like they have possibly an STD and just be responsible. If you get married to the person, then get a blood test. It's really simple. It's not hard. But no, what they want is they know that they are feeding on the gay aspect of sexuality. And it's like the one place where most people have an Achilles heel in gay world. I'm sorry, I'm just going to tell y'all. We hoes. But instead of taking responsibility, we just wanted to breathe free. I have watched entire generations say to me, well, by taking this, I don't have to wear a condom, and it feels much better. Until you die. Until your rights are taken away. or until you are vilified again. You weren't here for what happened to your uncles. You weren't here for the fact that they were left in tents to die painfully alone, never touched by anyone, vilified and told that they were the abomination of life. Did you know that? Because that's where we're going again. You were repeating the same cycle. Truth. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is so dark and so... So, with the virus, not only do they have us doing this, but they have us learning where to go to the bathroom, when we can go out. I mean, why would that transitional house have to... Is there a curfew? Does the virus go home? Does it take a break? Does it travel the world? Why are we doing some of these things? It's just to break you. It's to manipulate the human condition. And they think they're getting away with it because what they've done is that, see, when you are, even as a medical practitioner, you have to abide by the federal law. And so the CDC, which is run by these people and is manipulatable because they're getting the information. You have to trust somebody. What happens when the people that you have to trust are lying? Nobody on our end is. We've all been conned. That's basically it. But no one from the wealthy down has anything to do with this. So before we start throwing stones and start going at each other, remember, they want you to lash out. That is the end game here. They knew they were going to get busted. And what they're hoping for is that we create riots so they can arrest anybody left that they haven't already put in jail or killed. And that they are going to, I don't know, I mean, I wouldn't say that they directly killed them, but I mean, if this virus is a real thing, because I think it's just a flu, y'all. Like, I'm sorry. I know that y'all just hate when I say that because, you know, people are dying. Y'all still haven't proven, you still haven't done the research, have you? You haven't looked up the numbers and noticed that it would be the same on par as every other year. That's impossible. If all of these people are suddenly dying from this pandemic, it would be a surplus. It wouldn't be the... You see what I'm saying? But we're not even bothering to look. That's how ingrained this is into our heads, that we honestly aren't even willing to look. Because they keep handing out these little stimulus checks to you guys. They can't even agree, like, on a budget yearly. They hate each other so much. And here they are, and the Senate, like, oh, he's not being indicted. He gets away with it. And I'm just looking at them going, but y'all don't even like... And I'm just like, this is the worst stage production I have ever seen in my life. And, of course, I'm standing off to the side, and that's why my mission was so important for the divine, was because you can't see this unless you're looking at it from God's perspective, and from, not that I'm God, but like from as a servant of God. And when you're a child of God, you can't help but have to be all the way back. So I was stripped of everything. I was stripped of money. I was stripped of any type of resources. I was stripped of any type of ally, any type of anybody that could interfere with my sphere. And I had to learn. And so when you are in an experience, you can't help but see the clarity of what's happening around you, because there's no TV. I was told not to watch TV, so I didn't watch the news crap. There's only one journalist I watch, and his name's Anderson Cooper, but that's for a whole different, like, he's just the shit. And so, like, but other than that, I don't watch nobody, because it's all lies. It's all bullshit. Like, none of the data makes sense. Oh, yes, the virus is going to march across from zone to zone. It's doing a military process, because who the fuck believes that? We did. Because we're in fear. So they're feeding on your fear. Remember, the people that would kind of say to you, like, and I'm not saying this about anybody, because there's toxic masculine, toxic feminine, but ladies, we are predominantly, the ladies and the more feminine is now left kind of like we're having to fend for ourselves. They're underestimating you, by the way. They forget that you are the lioness. They're thinking that all they need to do is get rid of the lions, and the lioness is going to sit there and be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'll take it that way. Oh, yeah, I have no rights. Oh, no, I can't say anything. I'm demure. I'm just gonna have your children and not even have anybody help me pay for. Oh yeah, like that's how low they think of women. Oh, it just infuriates the fuck out of me. Sorry, I'm supposed to be graceful. Anyway, that's how that, and y'all are just making it so easy. Like, this whole thing about you're losing your rights left, right, and center, and you're fighting about stuff that does not matter to you. The only way to get rights is to unite. You're not doing that. You're fighting about even the thought. You don't even think you have the right to think for yourself. That's what Roe v. Wade is. And look what's happening now. That poor woman in New York, brave woman, and I'm going to tell you something right now. You stick to your fucking guns, because the divine is right there with you. Sorry, I don't mean to point. I don't like when people point at me. And mind you, is a woman. I wonder if they would have done that to a guy. I bet not. But no, we're going to let it happen. Oh, well, she's wrong for that. I mean, all of us matter too. It's a cold. If you're still here, you ain't getting it. Unless you're like 90 years old, in which case, God's going, huh. Time's up. We have a contract. But we're so in fear because that's what they're feeding on. And so like the media and music and all of the people talking about this stuff, it's just so much that it's so easy to get bamboozled into it because it's our normal everyday. No one ever thinks to stop and go, wait. Because we know that none of this makes sense to nobody. It's like there's not a single one of y'all who's going to see this video just not going, yeah, he's right. But it's like until someone says it and starts to connect the dots of just how bad this is, no one's ever going to break free. And so the one thing I'm going to say about this is it. Like this is so heavy and so dark to me that I'm going to do my best to do what my next project and everything that the divine is going to hand to me, and I'm going to just take off and do all of that. I mean, my blessings are already there. I don't need to worry. But what I'm not going to do is sit here and try to explain to people what I just explained. Like you understand or you don't understand. That's not this is the end of time type of stuff. Like either you're going to be one of the 144,000 to make it out or you're not. Like I'm not going to banter back and forth. Because it's so heavy. I don't want to see women brutalized and raped. And this child trafficking thing, guys, how on earth is it okay to have child trafficking? That it should be abolished like that. There should be no question. And how do our child molesters in our churches? That is the truth of humanity right now. Because we are so bamboozled into believing that we are okay, and we know we're not. So what the end game of enslavement is, to make sure that we go to the bathroom where we're told to, that we stay home, that we don't mix with other cultures, that we don't mix with other people, that we all start to become more and more like in our own heads. And then what does that do? Everybody's on their phones. That's the other part of enslavement. Is, have you ever noticed that if you get on a bus, or even on cars, like if I see one more motherfucker on a fucking cell phone while driving a car, but that's my own personal baggage. But have you noticed that everyone on our planet, everyone is on their phone? Nobody looks up, nobody engages, so you are being indoctrinated non-stop all the time. And so understand that at the end of the day, that is exactly what they want, is they want your enslavement to these things so that you don't ever break free. You see, we used to have this thing called books in our world, and we used to read them. And in those books, we were exposed to ideas, and we were evolving, and it was continual flow, but we've reached a stagnation point because everybody watches what? Only what they like to watch. And during a pandemic, everybody watches the pandemic. So whatever free thought you once had, you have sold in exchange for the entertainment value, because you can't be alone. Oh, heaven forbid, I can't live alone. So they're feeding on that as well. Remember, they have vilified all of our valiant warriors and put them in jail for stupid shit like drugs selling. Pharmaceutical companies do it every day. What's the difference to society? I really am curious about this, because methadone can be more deadly than heroin. And on top of it, there are methadone clinics making millions and millions of dollars. And that's the biggest threat, y'all, that we have, is pharmaceutical companies. Because, now they're telling us that there's magic pills that can annihilate the HIV. Oh, you can't pass this on. And telling people, oh, no, you don't have to wear a condom anymore. And then the percentage that they're going to fudge that actually gets it, because they're trying to get rid of the gay population, they're just going to be like, oh, well, we said in the disclaimer that there's a slight possibility. I mean, you can get hit by a car just by walking out of your house, right? And you're just handing it away. And women are just handing away their rights. And African Americans are just handing away their rights. And the Hispanic are just handing it. And I'm just watching this, and I'm like, how do I get through? And the divine says, you don't. You just share your story. You tell them the truth. And if they get it, then they get it. But it's not my task to make the world understand that they're enslaved to a group of people who thumb their nose up at God and who are really trying to hurt you. Their idea is that there would be a purification point where they would be able to get rid of a large percentage of the population so as to balance out how many people there are globally. And what they've done is that they're making you sacrifice yourselves, because with this vaccine, there's no such thing as a miracle drug. All drugs have complications to someone. So there's a percentage there. Then they're getting rid of the ones that are in jail from natural causes, like, from violence to each other. The street gangs do the other part. Then they do the subjugation of women, child trafficking. Then they do the homosexual population, who's going to get it the worst, because in a couple years, most of you are going to have HIV if you keep going down this route, and so forth. That's their plan. And so what happens to the population? It starts to become manageable. And they're dying to get off this planet, man, because they know God's about to make an appearance. You see, in the sky, and I'm going to be very specific, prophecy spoke of the return of Christ would happen when a shepherd heralded his return. He did. His name was Matthew Shepherd, and he was crucified, literally, and left to hang in a field, just like Christ. But no one talked about it. But here's a further point to prove this even further. What happened at his funeral, guys? Look it up. Angels lined the entire barricade all the way to his funeral. Angels showed up and protected and shielded him from the hatred that was built off of religion. Your own shepherd was crucified in that field, and you didn't see it. How? If you are a believer of God, how did you not notice that that was a literal shepherd who was left in a field to die? That's how asleep we've been. That's when judgment began, guys. And on top of it, the secret service of the divine, when the divine returns, when Christ comes back, will be gay. Not that he's gay or she's gay or it's gay. That's not what I'm saying at all. There's none of that here. I'm saying that that's what they serve. They are here to, they're the pollinators of the planet. They literally come to do your hair and to help raise your children, because none of y'all want to raise your own fucking kids, and so it's like except for women. And then what are they doing to women? They're making sure that you never have equal pay, you never have equal right. You see what I'm saying? It's just like more and more layer after layer after layer after layer. And I'm just asking you guys to wake up. I can't take a dead horse to water and make it drink, but I can ask you to listen and understand that your freedom as a race is at stake. You see, what they don't understand is that they pray to Satan, this minority of idiots. I'm sorry, they're idiots to me. But the minority of these people, they don't respect God. They don't respect you, and they don't respect life. They respect materialism. So you are just cattle to these people, and they are slaughtering you. And they're using you each to slaughter each other. Every time that they engage one of you to hit another human being because they have the right to not wear the mask, instead of you just walking around the person, you are fight. Why? You're going to hell. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're handing your right away to, because what you're saying is that your freedom is more important than this freedom. No, that's not how the world works. See what I'm saying? Like, people who listen to music really loud instead of wearing headphones, you are infringing in everyone else's right. You may say that you don't have the right to do that. You have the right to listen to whatever the fuck you want to listen to with earbuds. You don't have the right to fuck everybody else's day up. And that's another way of the culturally. I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's specific races that walk around with the radio blasting as they go everywhere. Now, what you don't know is that to anyone around you, it just makes you look even worse. It makes you look... You see what I'm saying? So when you get fed into your machismo, into your ego, question it. Because they're trying to disempower you. The strongest people on this fucking planet are African American people and black people in general. Any minority is the strongest. I need everybody to hear that. You are not the weakest, but as long as you react in violence, as long as you react in drug addiction, as long as you react in sedentary, as long as you react in ways to beat women and hate gays, anything like that makes you go from the top to the very bottom of all of society. And you're making it far too easy. And I know that you don't want to hear that. But the only way to get your rights that you deserve on this planet is to band together with gays, with women, with minorities, and stand as one and say, I am equal. God made me. God made me, not you, you son of a bitch. I'm a person. I have a soul. I'm a fucking human being. And you are not going to trick me anymore. I'm not going to give you my rights. I'm not going to just flash out at you. I'm not going to get triggered. I'm not going to end up in jail so you can fuck my wife while I'm not here. I'm going to raise my fucking kids. And you can't do anything about it. But I'm not going to get mad. I'm going to get even. And I'm going to do it responsibly. And I'm going to do it now. And women, Look at your daughters and you tell me that they don't even have the right to choose, if they have the right to think, if they want to have their daddy's baby, if that happens, because they're being preyed upon. And a lot of it's even by church clergy. Now, you may not like that truth, but it's the truth of life. And the only way I'm ever even going to meet with somebody from the Catholic Church is when they turn over every fucking child molester they have in there. California alone has a bunch that they fucking relocated I don't know where. Oh, I don't play that game. I work for the Divines. The Divines not. You see, everybody's still thinking that they pray to Satan, these morons. But what they don't realize is that if you understand what a soul is, that is the extension of what you are above. And below, you are the shadow of that soul. If you think high enough, you can see that the physical form that we take here is a shadow to our energetic body above. So, if you understand that Christ is coming back as the Antichrist and the four horsemen are exactly the four archangels, then you can understand that God's shadow. I always wonder that. I never understood that. I was like, why would God give the most powerful position in the entire planet to a fallen angel? And I realized it's because it's his shadow. That's what fell. It's not that it fell. It's just his shadow. And I was like, oh, well, that makes more sense. But that's my truth. I'm sorry, guys. I'm having a bad hair day, but sorry, not sorry. I think it's a cute hat. But you see what I'm saying? So what they don't know is that who they're praying to is God. They just don't know it. God's just not saying anything to them. You know how like some people who are divine beings have this way of letting you just dig a hole onto yourself and not knowing that they're undercover the entire time, and they just look at you and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. So even if the divine isn't, like even if it is not the shadow side of the divine, I'm just going to remind you of something. The divine still runs the show. So Satan still has to report to the divine. So, and Satan can't wait to fuck y'all. Like, the people that are involved in this, to think that they're going to get away with this, they're all trying to get off the planet. Oh, let's go to space, blah, blah, blah. You can't even take care of your own planet. You've butchered it. You've annihilated all of the rainforest. You've done all these crimes to humanity. And you think we're going to let you off this fucking rock? Oh, it's going to be good. So, to humanity, you just hang in there. Wake up. Call for their heads. And then let the divine take it. Because the divine has yet to show his hand. Remember, I'm just a symbol. I'm just a divine servant. I am a child of God. I'm not, right? I'm telling you that someone's about to arrive and break this wide open. What you decide to do for yourselves before that happens is entirely up to you. But if I did not share this with you, the heaviness on me would never let me rise. And it's time for me to ascend to where I should be in life. And it's going to have a lot of great... I have a vision in mind that helps humanity in every fucking possible way. But I can't do that. I can't fly if I'm held down by the truth of what we're going through. You are a divine being. You were created by God to change the world. Everyone here has purpose. Everyone here has merit. Don't let them make you keep handing your rights away. You see, when I opened this whole thing, I said that I'm here because we have a spiritual poverty issue. Because our own houses of worship they've been treasonous to some degree. Not all of them. I mean, there's really good clergy out there, and I'm pretty sure the Pope is pretty damn awesome. But they have child molesters there. Like that, you can't get around that fucking issue. So until that is dealt with, I can't even think about it. You know what I mean? Like neither can you. Whether we're gonna say, oh yeah, no, they can touch our kids because they represent God. How the fuck is that representing God? You see what I'm saying? Because God's like the divine's like I can't like. You know what I mean? So be very cautious, especially child trafficking. How is that not your number one priority if you have children? How many more children are going to go missing? How many more children are going to be butchered and killed before you stand up and go, wait, he's right, this is complete craziness. What are we doing here? Because you are enslaved. We are enslaved. But they don't understand that you are divine beings. All you need to do is look up and look for the light, and God is waiting. Whatever God, Allah, Messiah, whatever the fuck you believe in. But all you need to do is open your eyes. Women, you have never been anything less than equal to a man. And men, you can't live without your mama. So you better start respecting them. Gentlemen, why are you even worried about gay populations? What are you hiding? Because that's exactly what the divine... The other day I looked at the divine and I go, this motherfucker right here, I just saw him in the back. You see what I'm saying? When you cast your stone elsewhere, to understand that that stone's coming from your own house, and it has your signature on it. And straight men, I hate to break it to you, don't give a flying fuck about gay people. They don't ever think about it. Like, I've never in my life gone, oh, let me watch this straight porn. No. Ew. Why are you worried about this? They're tricking you. And the more that you wake up and you start to just kind of go, you start to rise. You just start to, like, I wish you could feel how much better I feel right now. And having finally shared this all with you. And there's more. But at the moment, that's what I got. That's where my energy's at. Because I'm just... I loathe that letter, the letter series that I was referring to. I don't like the idea of breaking humans. I think that is the biggest crime on that, and raping children and hurting children. And that's what's rampant. That's what they're doing. And we're just letting it happen. I love you all, and I hope you understand this, and I hope you understand this is from the right place. But this is up to y'all now. I'm going to do my best to move on to what I need to do to help everything, but in a way that's very positive and away from this negativity. But y'all, seek the light. Look at what's going on and ask yourself, is this what you're here to do? Did you really incarnate to go through this hell? This is supposed to be a school where you learn to overcome. So what is this golden opportunity you have in front of you? God is handing you your freedom. It is saying to you, hey, we can change this right now. Just band together and don't react to them. Outsmart them. Remember, they think they're better than God. They think they're better than me. Not me, but I'm speaking on behalf. So all we have to do is work together. Unity is the answer, not division. And then fight like fucking hell. That's it for me, guys. I hope you have a blessed day. I'm going to go where all Krabby Patties go after that and try to get my... Anyway, I love you all. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm going to go where all crabs should go and just relax for the rest of the day. Bless you and have a great day.